road ahead is uncertain, but the end is clear.
Against whom?
Whomever may dare to challenge us.
Hello, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guides to all things Westerosi, and we're, as always, here to bring you a review, an analysis, and a fan v fan debate on each episode of HBO's Game of Thrones successor series, House of the Dragon. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we are introducing a special new mini-sode series that we're going to call Rapidfire Blood Reactions, where my special co-host and I will provide our very immediate reactions to the latest episodes of House of the Dragons. We'll quickly provide our thoughts before predicting what we expect to see next, and then conclude by picking a winner, a loser, and a wild card player from each episode. Now, in this segment, we'll see how it goes. Could be every week or just whenever we have time for it. We're going to be coming straight at you immediately following the episode. So these reactions are going to be very raw, very straightforward, not a lot of analysis, just quick thumbs up, thumbs down. What do we like? What didn't we like? And for this segment, I'm very excited to welcome my first time co-host. She is my sun and moon. Coming up to us from the beautiful city of Highgarden, Lady Lauren of House Weingart. Lauren Weingart, welcome to the show.
Good day to you, Sir Caleb.
It's a pleasure to speak to my significant other behind the mic.
My betrothed.
Betrothed, yes. So, Lauren, we're going to be reacting today to Season 1, Episode 2 of House of the Dragon, The Rogue Prince. Now, listeners, before we get to that, just wanted to quickly shout out that if you enjoy all of our conversations, you can keep up with everything we do on our social media channels, including Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT and on Facebook at facebook.com/castbeyondthewall. So, Lady Lauren, I'm just going to kick us off here. This episode was The Rogue Prince, the second episode of the season. And I, just much like the first episode, I felt like it had a lot of expectations to meet. Right, because the first episode, as listeners can hear in my discussion with Daniel and LaRon last week, it had a high bar it had to meet as the first episode for being a pilot, and I thought it succeeded by and large. I thought it was a really compelling hour of television, setting up where we're going. The second episode, though, The Rogue Prince, has to prove that it can keep the momentum sustained for more than one episode. So I guess my question to you is, do you think it succeeded in sustaining that sort of momentum? Did you like it? Yay, nay?
I think so. It's giving me what I want. They're all playing the Game of Thrones. They're all trying to succeed, and everyone's trying to in their own little way. I mean, we got what is Valerian, offering her 12-year-old daughter as creepy. I was like, oh God, I was waiting for that scene. Or I was like, is this her? Oh my God, she's so young.
Listen, but she's not going to have to bed the king until she turns 14.
Until she's 14. So, not too bad. I'm like, oh God, so young. But I'm digging it. Yeah, it's keeping me interested, and I want to see where it's going.
Yeah, so again, Valerian is making some moves. He goes to the king and is like, listen, people think that we are in a moment of weakness in the Seven Kingdoms. How better to show them that we are at our strengths, our brightest days are ahead of us, than to unite the two ancient Valerian houses of Targaryen with Valerian. So I guess my whole thing is, the big sort of question is, who is the king going to marry? And they do a really interesting thing where they're talking a lot about marriage as sort of a duty. This is, again, based loosely off of the medieval times, so to speak, the Dark Ages. And it's really just a matter of how can we make ourselves politically more powerful by having a hand in marriage. And I have to say, they spent so much time thinking that he was going to marry Valerian. It was a bit of a surprise. Surprise, at least certainly to the characters at the end, that he decided to wed Hightower. And I actually thought this was, I'm not going to lie, I kind of saw this coming from a mile away, the way they planted Alicent Hightower in the last episode. Otto Hightower quietly making the moves. He never says...
The night that his wife died. He was already playing. Like he was like, go to him, bring him comfort. But he knew what he was doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And it worked.
Well, and you notice he never proposes to the king.
No, he didn't say anything.
Hey, you should marry my daughter,
No, he's
Alicia
just like,
Hightower, instead.
Go see him.
Right, exactly. And I love the way when he is confronted by it, he's basically like, I do not envy your position to wed such a young woman.
Yeah.
And that's all he has to say.
Yeah, and you could tell in that scene because, they were really wanting, oh, no, you should do Lady Lana, And he was just like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to, I don't envy you. Yeah, so.
Again, it was a way for him to say, I support your political decision, but also it's a bad idea.
It's like, yeah, you should remarry, but maybe not.
I don't envy you if this is the path you take. Right, right. I don't officially not support you, but I don't envy you.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by that, but I think Rhaenyra was surprised.
Oh yes,
and it was funny because she talked to her father and she was like, you know what, you are the king, you need to do your duty. But he didn't, and they were talking about it, but he didn't. He did not left the part out where it was like, oh yeah, so I'm going to wed your best friend.
Yeah, his father's like, what do you think about me remarrying?
Yeah.
I found the Red Keep to be just less warm without your mother. Mm-hmm. And they have a nice bonding moment where she's like, oh, me too. I'm glad that you say that because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's a remarriage. And she's like, I support you no matter what you do. Except maybe, marry my best friend. That's a little weird.
I left that little part out.
Yeah, little detail. So again, that's sort of like the big political game here is everyone's trying to, I say everyone, it's really Valerian and Hightower trying to politically maneuver themselves into a position of power. Another thing that's interesting, clear setup for where we're going in the weeks ahead. Valerian had a couple of things going on. Number one was, yes, push his daughter to get married to King Viserys. But the other is that there are these pirates from the Free Cities, a.k.a. Bravos for longtime listeners and watchers of Game of Thrones, that they seek to begin to undermine the sort of authority of Viserys and the Seven Kingdoms. They're not officially invading, but they are trying to position themselves to have more control over these shipping lanes. And frankly, to Valerian's point, Lord Corlys Valerian's point, it does seem like maybe something you should probably stand your ground a little more and say, yeah, you're not gonna mess with our shipping lanes. Like we are lords here, right? But instead, King Viserys is like, we don't want to go to war here until we have no other option. Yeah. So they want to poach up here, no big deal. So instead, we get the big reveal at the end of the episode that Valerian is instead, after failing to win the king's favor, going to his brother, who I think is considered a traitor at this point. It's kind of a little squishy, but he goes to Daemon Targaryen saying, hey, listen, you don't have any power officially granted by the king, but you could win the love and the affection and the respect of other lords in the area if you come and squash these pirates to show them who's really in control.
Yeah. And he, not only does he get the boat or the pirates taken care of, but then he also is on the side of Daemon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, some plays here. Definitely some maneuvering going on here. Overall, I would say solid second episode. There was also, I want to call out the scene between Daemon and Rhaenyra. That was
a good scene.
That was a great scene that kind of face off, and you learn a lot more about the relationship in that moment because. And on one hand, it really seems like, Daemon would just say, screw her. She took my throne, like my heir, my position as heir. But they seem to have a connection.
They have a connection.
He does seem to be affectionate of her and not want, he doesn't want to hurt her, I don't think.
And I knew, they have an understanding. And she knew that when she showed up, it was kind of like also her chance to kind of, show that she has some.
She has to put her money where her mouth is.
Yeah.
She's not just talking in hot air. She's actually like, no, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what he's capable of, and I know that I'm going to call his bluff.
Yeah, and he was never gonna hurt her, and it was awesome because she came in, and because they were probably going to fight and probably kills. There was probably going to be some killing.
Well, no, he was bringing it. Damon was bringing his dragon into it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, these guys are screwed.
Yeah,
like,
and so they oh my gosh, they owe her because she showed up, and it was cool because I was like, because I saw the one dragon, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then you see the clouds go up, and it's like, wait, there's another one. Oh, it's her. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was
So
a good moment.
the first dragon we see is Damon's dragon. His dragon is named Caraxes, which is pretty cool. And he's the big red one. So you're like, oh, he's gonna roast those guys. But then you see in the other one, it's like, oh no, does he have a surprise second dragon?
I thought he did it for a second.
No, she drives a dragon named Syrax. So it was just a great sequence. Again, I think showing us the limits of Damon, at least when it comes to his family, and even more specifically, I think with Rhaenyra. But also, you kind of learn a little bit about how he really doesn't take his brother seriously at all.
No.
He's like, no one was going to get hurt.
And he's also just playing. He's like a kid playing because it's like he's like, oh, yeah, I am about to have a kid, and she's not even pregnant. He just is.
They're not married either.
Yeah, they're not even married, and he's just doing this to get attention, and he's stealing the dragon egg. So. Which just happened to be the dragon egg.
Well, I think he is trying to do the thing. Our guest host last week, LaRon Chapman, said on the show, he's trying to find a reason to be justified in retaliating against his brother in this way. He's sort of trying to goad him and his armies into attacking him, essentially, so then he can feel justified in doing something, whatever the case may be. But this was a super fun episode. I'm super fun, solid. I love the investment we're getting in the relationships, and also, again, the political maneuvering is a lot more clear. There's a lot more movement, I feel like, in episode 2 rather than episode 1, or at least it's a lot more on the surface. So I'm excited to see where we go next. It looks like Alicent Hightower and King Viserys are going to be popping a baby out real fast. And on top of that, it does look like, in fact, based on the next time on, that Daemon is going to go and show those crab pirates who's boss. So there's a few things to look forward to. But overall, I would say good episode 2, not mind-blowing, but I am intrigued. Again, it's all about table setting. And I love that we continue the emphasis on the people plotting and talking in rooms and politically maneuvering or outmaneuvering their enemies.
Yeah, it's like we're getting what we want, right? We got people in rooms talking, but we get, because we had to wait for a long time in Game of Thrones before we got some dragon action,
right?
So it's like we got the beauty of the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, but then we get some dragon action along with it.
Again, these are very unfiltered thoughts, but yes, I love it. And we also really haven't seen the real power of these dragons yet. No. I mean, this is just dragons used as a sort of a intimidation tool. Like, look, I got a dragon. It could roast you guys. And then all of a sudden, Rhaenyra's like, bitch, I got a dragon too. You want to fight? And he's like,
how big's your dragon?
Yeah, exactly. So, overall, solid episode 2. Listeners, you can tune in for my in-depth recap of the episode this upcoming Wednesday with Daniel Stull and special guest Harold Story from the Tunes podcast. Very excited to do a more thorough breakdown of each scene or storyline, along with our picks for winners and losers. But I will say, speaking of winners and losers of the week, Lauren, I really, really quickly want to get your input here. So what we started doing this on our main episode, and I think it actually applies to the Rapid Fire and Blood reactions as well. We have this week's winner, this week's loser, and this week's wild card. So I want to get your picks. Who do you pick for winner, loser, and wild card?
Okay. Well, I was going to say Rhaenyra as the winner because, she got to pick what is it, the King's Guard. She got to swoop in and save the day. But then in the end, her finding out that her dad was going to wed her friend, I would say, okay, maybe she's not the winner. I say the winner is Otto Hightower.
Mm-hmm.
He got to plant that seed early, and it worked. And he also didn't have to, he got to go to Daemon, but then he didn't, and got saved by Rhaenyra, actually, and he didn't have to get all violent or anything. I guess the loser would be Corlys Velaryon, because he set out for the king to wed his daughter. It was a good go. It sounded like a good idea. She's just too dang young,
I mean, she is too dang young, but politically speaking, I was like,
makes sense.
It's a pretty solid case, actually.
I mean, they married young, I'm assuming, back all the time anyway, so.
Well, it's based off of, again, the medieval era, Dark Ages sort of thing. So the older men marrying children is not super uncommon for the time.
Yeah. And I would say wild card. I mean, I feel like Damon's such a obvious choice for like wild card because he is such a wild card kind of character. But also Princess Reyes, or what? How do you say her name?
Are you talking about the queen that never was?
The queen that never was.
Yes, Rhaenys Targaryen.
Mm-hmm. Because she obviously was part of that. Trying to, it was probably her idea, honestly, to have Lady Lena wed the king.
I would argue. I'm fairly confident it was her idea.
Mm-hmm. She's just the woman whispering in the man's ear.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his own thing going on too.
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty aligned with you here. Again, my opinion on this might change by the time we post our episode on Wednesday, listeners. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself too much. But I'd say just off the top, looking at this episode, 15 minutes after it finished airing, this week's winner, I agree. Otto Hightower quietly.
Yeah, the quiet, silent
He's
winner.
very strategic in how he positions both his arguments and his daughter without being straight about what he's wanting, right? Loser's definitely Corlys Velaryon, and this week's wild card, I am gonna differ a little bit. I am gonna go with Rhaenyra. Okay. Why? Because she got to do a lot of cool stuff this week. Like you said, she got to pick the new heads of the King's Guard, and she got to flex her dragon muscles a little bit. And she does not seem content with the status quo of men ruling over her. I mean, if you, again, looking at what her aunt, Rhaenys Targaryen, basically said, well, this is just the natural order of things. She doesn't seem content with that, nor do I think she'll stay content with that. Even if there is more heirs that crop up, I have a feeling she has political ambitions that are much larger. So I'm going to go with Rhaenyra for the wild card for the week. Again, disclaimer being that if you tune in on Wednesday, these very well might change as I have more time to think about it. Well, Lauren, anything else you would like to add about this week's episode, The Rogue Prince?
Oh, I will say I really like the new intro.
Okay, you're a fan.
And I actually like that it had the same music. It took me right back to that nostalgic of when that song comes on, and I'm like, na 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 na. But it would look different, obviously, but it still kind of had the graphic, design of it was similar, but it was a lot different. And it had the blood, so it got the bloodline going in there, and I like how I don't know if it's representative of different houses or areas or whatever, but it goes to different places, and one time it even looks like a tree. I'm interested to see that over and over.
Yeah, I really, again, having done zero research on what this means, my assumption is that is the blood of various houses all kind of filtering into or the different kingdoms all filtering into the dragon symbol. So I'm 50-50 on it. On one hand, the nostalgia is pretty powerful. I do love the Game of Thrones theme. It's like an all-time iconic, like one of the greatest television theme songs of all time. And yes, when it boots up the dun 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 dun, you're like, yes, this is it. Kind of like Star Wars, where you're like, whenever you see the...
And exactly, because it doesn't matter if it's in a new movie. Every time when you hear that Star Wars, you're like...
Takes you back.
It takes you back.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's a new one and it's an old...
Right.
old score.
Now that said, it does feel I mean, yes, the new graphics and everything are cool. I'm still trying to figure out how to read them. Again, having done zero research on this and having just finished the episode, but I do like that it's a totally new graphic and build instead of the huge world map. It's something different. That said, there is still a part of me that's like, I do love original music for spinoffs. I think about Better Call Saul, had a different one from Breaking Bad, similar but different. Also, if you think about Frasier, Cheers, that's another great one. So, I mean, there's a lot of spinoffs that have great original theme songs for shows with iconic themes. So I'm 50-50. I'm going to have to let this one steal my brain. Hopefully by the time we record our podcast on Wednesday, I'll come down one way or the other. But right now I'm kind of like, yes, nostalgia. I wish it was different still.
Yeah. I'm okay with it being the same one because it got me really pumped. But I mean, nothing can compare to that first one though. I mean, as cool as this one was, it can't compare to that first one. It's so cool.
Okay. So the other thing, the Game of Thrones theme, the other thing about it that's really cool is, all the animations are super awesome, but it actually gives you a pretty good sense of the geography.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool.
Which was super helpful. It actually served a purpose for viewers other than just looking really cool. This one, I don't know that it.
Maybe it does.
Maybe it does. We gotta watch it. And
maybe it'll change.
Maybe there's clues to like Westworld where it's like, there's clues to what'll happen later in the season. I didn't pick any out, but we're only in two episodes in, and I didn't even know what to look for. So we'll see. I hope there's something more to it than just, hey, it looks cool. But we'll see. We'll see. Jury's still out for me, but I'm really glad you liked it. And again, you're not wrong. When that opening starts, you're like chills.
Yeah,
for sure. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning in today for this quick reaction. Again, we'll be back on Wednesday with our in-depth sort of storyline by storyline breakdown. In the meantime, we need your help. We need this podcast to get discovered by more listeners just like yourself. And hey, wouldn't you know it, there are a lot of Game of Thrones podcasts out there. And if you could do us a solid and help us get more found by more people, head on over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating on Spotify and Apple. And on Apple, you can even leave us a written review. So I do highly recommend you do that for us. That will be a request that you do that for us. It'll be a huge boost for folks to discover us. And of course, if you want to stay more engaged, you can send us emails at castbeyondthewall@live.com. If you have questions, comments, or thoughts about this week's episode or things you'd like us to discuss on the show, you can email us there, or you can hit us up on Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/castbeyondthewall. Lauren Weingart, one thing we didn't mention here is that you also do cool things on the internet too, like perhaps wedding videos. Where can people find you and your wedding videos online?
Yes, I am a wedding videographer here in Oklahoma, and you can find me at Video Peach Productions on Instagram and Facebook.
All right. Excellent. Well, listeners, you can also follow me on Twitter, tweeting about all the things, film, movies, and sometimes video games at C Masters Talk. That is letter C, Masters Talk. Thank you for tuning into our inaugural mini episode of Rapid Fire and Blood Reactions. We're going to aim to get as many of these out as we can. I think it's just a fun way to get you guys our thoughts more quickly. Can't make any guarantees it'll be every week. But stay tuned. Sunday nights, Monday mornings, just to kind of get your quick Game of Thrones fix before we get our full episode on Wednesday. Until next time. Dragons on the wall. Dragons on the wall.